Good morning, students. How are you all? I hope you are fine and in keeping in good health. Today, we are going to learn the second part of the second lesson of 10th standard in history, that is historiography, Indian tradition. Second part, that is Indian historiography, various ideological framework. The first part which we learned was about tradition of Indian historiography. The second part is Indian historiography, various ideological framework. The first one is colonial historiography. Now, colonial means colonies of the Britishers. Okay, the early scholars who studied and wrote Indian history were mainly British officers and Christian missionaries. Their prejudice is clearly reflected in the way some of them have ridiculed Indian culture. Their writings were used to justify the colonial British rule. The 5 volumes of Cambridge History of India, published during 1922-1937 Christian era, are distinct examples of colonial historiography. So, during the colonial historiography, whatever history was written, it was written by the British officers, and these British officers were prejudiced, okay, and they ridiculed the Indian culture and they justified British rule, colonial British rule. Orientalist historiography. Many European scholars felt curious about civilizations and countries of the East. Some of those scholars felt admiration and respect for them. These scholars were known as Orientalists. Okay, means they have many those who had curious about civilization and countries of the East. Many European scholars who had curious about civilization and countries of the East. This they had respect for them, so they were known as Orientals. The Orientalists studied the similarities between Sanskrit and some of the European languages. They focused more on Vedic tradition and Sanskrit literature. Their studies resulted into formulating the notion of an ancient language that could be the mother of all Indian Indo-European languages. Okay, their studies resulted into formulating the notion of an ancient language that could be the mother of all Indo-European languages. In 1784, Sir William Jones founded Asiatic Society in Kolkata. It opened the doors for research in ancient Indian literature and history. Among the Orientalist scholars, Frederick Max Muller deserves a special mention. In his opinion, Sanskrit was the most ancient language of the Indo-European languages. He was deeply interested in Sanskrit literature. He first translated the Sanskrit text of Hitopadeshad. He was the editor of 50 volumes of the sacred books of the East. He also compiled Rig Veda, which has been published in 6 volumes. He translated Rig Veda in German. Lately, Edward said, a scholar who has re-evaluated the Orientalist writings, has thrown light on imperialistic interest of Orientalist scholars. Now, these Europeans had lot of interest towards the East. They had respect towards them, and they started to do the study on the Eastern languages. So, according to them, the ancient language of Indo-European language is the Sanskrit, and then they have done a lot of studies on that. Nationalistic historiography. The writings of Indian historians who were trained in the British educational system show an inclination to restore the pride in the ancient glory of India and the self-esteem of the Indian readers. Their writings are known as nationalistic historiography. Again, okay, who were trained in the British education system show an inclination to restore the pride in the ancient glory of India. They wanted to restore the pride in the ancient glory of India and the self-esteem of the Indian readers. Nationalistic writings in Maharashtra were inspired by Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar. He criticized the prejudiced history of ancient India, written by British officers. The nationalistic historians tried to seek the golden era of Indian history. They are at times blamed for ignoring the critical analysis of the historical truth. Mahadev Govind Ranade, Ramkrishna Gopal Bhandarkar, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, Rajendra Lal Mishra, Ramesh Chandra Muzumdar, Kashi Prasad Jaiswal, Radha Kumud Mukherjee, Bhagwan Lal Indraji, Vasudev Vishnu Mirushi, and Anant Sadashiv Altekar are the names of some renowned scholars among the nationalistic historians. Rajwade is well known for his writings in Marathi on varied subjects like history, linguistics, etymology, grammar, etc. He was of the firm opinion that we should write our own history. He compiled and edited 22 volumes of Marathyanचा इतिहासाची साधने. He wrote very scholarly prefaces to each of the 22 volumes. He stated, history is the all inclusive image of the past societies. It does not include only the stories of political images, conspiracies, and wars for seizing power. He insisted that history should be written only using the authentic documentary source. The nationalistic historiography helped in the triggering of the independence movement of the Indian people against the British. In this aspect of the book, The Indian War of Independence 1857, written by Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, is of great importance. The nationalistic historiography provided a momentum to the writings of regional histories too. As a result, the attention of historians was drawn to the geographic conditions and history of South Indian regions. Historiography in the post independence era, and now after the independence. Now, along with the writings, the dynamic histories, the cultural, social, economic histories were also being written. Scholars of the post independence era began to feel the need of writing histories of various communities, sciences, economic systems, political ideologies, cultural aspects, etc. The historiography of this era has been influenced mainly by three ideological schools: Marxist history, subaltern history, and feminist history. We shall learn about these three parts, okay, or we shall learn it now itself. Marxist history. The concern for the means of production, mode of production, and the industrial relation were at the center in the writings of Marxist historians. Accordingly, to analyze the impact of every social event of significance has remained the basic theme of Marxist historiography. Marxist historians in India studied the transitions within the caste system. Among the notable Indian historians who adopted Marxist ideological framework, scholars like Damodar Dharmanand Kosambi, Comrade Shirpad Amrut Dange, Ram Sharan Sharma, Comrade Sharad Patil have contributed notably. Comrade Dange was one of the founder members of Indian Communist Party, Primitive Communism to Slavery. The book written by him represents Marxist historiography. Subaltern history. The seeds of subaltern history are found in the Marxist historiography. The role of the Italian historian Antonio Gramsci is very important in developing the idea that history should be written starting from the bottommost ranks of people in the society. In fact, subaltern means the bottommost ranks. Folklore has been considered as a very important source of writing subaltern histories. Ranjit Guha, an Indian historian, played a major role in establishing subaltern history as an important academic school of historiography. However, we may point out that much before the onset of subaltern ideology, similar thoughts were expressed by Mahatma Jyotirao Phule and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Mahatma Phule unfolded the history of the Shudra communities in his book Gulamgiri. He drew attention to the exploitation of women, Shudras and Ati Shudras, done under the name of religion. The term Shudra and Ati Shudra indicates the bottommost ranks in the caste system. The role of the people belonging to the Dalit caste is very significant in the shaping of various cultural and political aspects of India. However, their role was not duly acknowledged. In the colonial and nationalist historiography, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, focusing on this fact, consistently wrote about it. Two of his books, Who Were the Shudras and the Untouchables, may be cited as examples of history of subaltern type. Now, in this subaltern type history, the people gave more importance to those who are at the bottommost ranks. Those not considered, not given importance. Someone has to speak for them. So people came out to write about them. Like Mahatma Phule wrote about them, Shudra, Ati Shudra. Then again, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, who has written the Constitution, keeping in mind to bring up the upliftment of the Dalit caste. Feminist history. Over a significant period of time, mainly male scholars were involved in the writing of Indian history. As a result, the role and achievements of women in history remained neglected. To highlight this fact was a major task faced by the feminist historians. Also, it was important to study and compile the historical writings of women. It was also necessary to rethink of women's position in history. Among women authors writing about women in the 19th century CE, Tarabai Shinde was the foremost one. She wrote attacking the male-dominated social system and the caste system. Her book, Stri Purush Tulna, published in 1882, is acknowledged as the first feminist book in India. In 1888, the book written by Pandita Ramabai was published entitled The High Caste Hindu Woman. The feminist literature of the post-independence era concentrated on the issues like employment of women, treatment meted out to them at their workplace, their right to political equality, etc. Among the recently published feminist literature, Meera Kosambi's book, Crossing Thresholds, Feminist Essays in Social History, is of importance. It contains essays on the life stories of women like Pandita Ramabai and Dr. Rukmabai, the first practicing lady doctor of India. A lot of literature is available unfolding the viewpoint of Dalit women in Maharashtra. Dr. Sharmila Rege's work is noteworthy in this context. Her book, Writing Caste, Writing Gender, Reading Dalit Women's Testimonies, includes her essays on the autobiographies of Dalit women. There have been a number of Indian historians who wrote without embracing a particular ideology. Among them, historians like Sir Jadunath Sarkar, Surendra Nath Sen, Riya Satkar G.S. Sardesai, and Trambak Shankar Shrejwakar are noteworthy. In the recent times, historians like Yashwant Dinkar Phadke, Ramchandra Guha, etc. have contributed extensively to the historiography of modern India. Thus, it is evident that the Indian historiography has been influenced greatly by the social and the political movements. It seems that some part of the Indian historiography was also developed outside the influence of these movements. Now, it is also said that all were writing, but then about women's no one was speaking. So, there were women historians who came forward to write about women's struggle, women's problems, and then that is known as feminist history. Okay, so we have finished this lesson today. Thank you.